PixMix is brought to you by the Arun Meta Show on youtube.com/Arun Meta Show and broadcasting Liberated Syndication, and is in association with the Old School Lane podcast.
PixMix is brought to you by oldschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with the Arun Meta Show.
Welcome to PixMix with Arun.
And Patricia.
Hey Patricia, how you doing?
Hanging in there.
Yeah.
Almost done with the first month of 2018, and February is approaching, so can't wait to see what's to come in the next couple of months.
Absolutely. Okay, so just to let everybody in the know, we've had some massive technical problems here at the Arun Meta Show studio, so we're a little bit off edge at the moment, so I do apologize if you hear any mistakes or anything like that, and also if you might hear any fuzzing in the background is because we're still basically putting the studio back together, so we do apologize in advance of that. But anyway, to get our minds off that, I think we do have a pretty entertaining PixMix to bring you, because we've actually drawn quite an interesting film, which is actually the second of a very popular trilogy.
Yes, it is Cars, everybody!
No,
I'm kidding. I am kidding. No, it is not Cars.
It's going to be inevitable, isn't it? We're going to do the second Cars film.
Yes, I know. I'm not looking forward to it.
No.
But no, the Random Wheel has granted us, thank you, Random Wheel, for the second time so far. We got Ratatouille last time, and now we have another fantastic Pixar movie. We have Toy Story 2.
Right here every day.
I always have concerns about sequels because, as far as I'm aware, when you have a really popular film that just goes all out, and like Toy Story did, when they say that there's going to be a second movie, it's understandable because it wants to build off the popularity of the first film, but at the same time, it has you a little bit nervous as well, because you're kind of asking yourself, is it going to be better, or is it going to be on the level of the first film? And I have to say, they really did top this one, and I have to say, this is probably has to be, out of all movie sequels, I think this has to be one of my favorite sequels.
Me too. And of course, similar to what we were discussing about with The Good Dinosaur, Toy Story 2 actually had some behind-the-scenes issues. They were originally going to make this a direct-to-video movie because they were putting all of their higher-ups to doing A Bug's Life. So because of The Bug's Life, it did get critical and financial success, but it wasn't up to par with Toy Story. And you have to understand that, they were thinking about doing a sequel for the longest time, but it was a huge stake because Pixar was still fairly new at the time. This would have been their third movie. And they decided that they were going to put everything all out. They were going to, basically work really hard, pushing in over budget, doing things at the last minute to create what was once going to be a direct-to-video movie into a theatrical one, and they flew in with flying colors.
Mm-hmm. So, there's not really much point talking about the short that came with the film, because with the first one we got Luxo Jr., and with the second one we got Luxo Jr. So,
well, the first one was Tin Toy, because it makes a lot of sense because Tin Toy is essentially the precursor to Toy Story. They wanted to make a movie on that. But yeah, we did discuss about Luxo Jr. in the Toy Story episode of PixMix, so you can go listen to that. But yeah, no discussing of any shorts. Maybe next time.
Maybe. Okay, so the plot begins with Buzz Lightyear on an adventure, which turns out to be a video game that Rex is playing, and I thought this was really fun to do at the beginning of it, because, you do kind of wonder what Buzz Lightyear is like in his element, where he's like in his story, if you will, and so obviously it's him in space fighting the evil Emperor Zurg, which would actually become the premise of the animated TV series. that would come afterwards.
Yes, I was just about to say that as well because the animated series would have been out around that time. It was 1999, so yeah, they were probably giving like a little slight promotion towards the animated series, and I just kind of find it hilarious because have you ever played Toy Story for the Super Nintendo?
Actually, I haven't. No.
Okay,
I have
so
played. To be fair, I have played the Sega Mega Drive version though. I think.
okay,
I do
well
remember
they're
that.
pretty much the same.
Okay.
And because it came out in 1999, the Nintendo 64 would have been out at the time. So I'm just thinking about like looking at the graphics that oh man, it just looks so like the movie. And then it's like it's a Super Nintendo. It would have been like really all pixelated and stuff.
Okay. Just before we get some angry comments in the chat, well, just let me tell you when Buzz Lightyear Star Commander was released. It was original release between October 2nd of 2000 to January 13th of 2001.
Oh, okay. So maybe they were giving a slight hint of a promotion. Like, hey, did you guys like that little clip of that video game where Buzz Lightyear was fighting off the evil Emperor Zurg? Well, we're going to make a TV series off of it coming next year.
Yeah, I tell you what, it was good as well actually. So it was a good way of doing that, and it did feel to have a bit of like that kind of a He-Man cheese to it as well. That's cartoon series. But anyway, one day we'll talk about the cartoon series, but right now we're talking about Toy Story 2, so we won't get distracted. So while the movie's set in sometime after the events of first Toy Story, presumably about 3 years later, Andy's preparing to leave for cowboy camp with his favorite toy, Woody. While playing with Woody, Buzz, and all the other toys, Andy almost tore Woody's arm off for linking his arm with Buzz, leaving him unable to taking his doll to camp. So this is actually this was the kind of the setting up the premise really for the fact that Woody is an old cowboy doll, and that it kind of plays up on that fact that because you do kind of forget that the fact that Woody and Buzz are such kind of like buddies that you kind of forget that one is actually older than the other.
Yeah, yeah, and later on throughout the movie, we find out on how old Woody is, and it's definitely a great playthrough from the first movie in which Woody was the favorite toy in Andy's room, and then Buzz came along and he was like the new hip toy. So this is just emphasizing a lot more and putting it into Woody's perspective.
Mm-hmm. So back on the shelf, Woody finds that it was all a dream and an illusion after having a dream and illusion of being thrown away, and he is coughing and finds out that it's behind the dusty book. He finds another broken toy, which is Wheezy the Penguin, and this is the bit where this is actually kind of a realistic situation actually, because he says, "Oh, I thought Andy's mom was going to fix you," and it's like, "No, we just end up being put on the dusty shelf, and then we end up getting put in a toy sale." So
yeah,
that's a realistic scenario, actually. I've actually had toys actually broken and they've ended up disappearing, and I never seen.
Yeah, pretty much. They are either given away at garage sales, or they're donated over to thrift stores, or they're just thrown in the dump. Which I really that scene in which when Woody is imagining himself in like being like thrown into the garbage, and like he's being surrounded by all these broken off toys. It's actually pretty scary.
Yeah, it almost feels like our generation was kind of like the last of the hand-me-downs, if you think about it, because I still have like a stuffed monkey from that my mum gave me. And yeah, because like I feel like there seems to be like a generation where it's like, yeah, we had something from our parents, but then after that we feel like anything after that generation, we feel like we've never really had, really. It feels like, they've kind of been given away or something like that. So it's like, it does feel like a generation lost in a way when you think about it.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. We would have like an old hand-me-down from like an older sibling or from your parents. And nowadays, everything's all about being new and being cutting edge and, upgrade 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, coming out like constantly quick. And something that's like at least maybe like a year or two old would be considered very antiquated.
Mm-hmm. Lots of people I went to school with, their grandfathers actually fought in wars, and so they actually got like army paraphernalia. And when it came to my granddad, I got a stamp collection.
Oh,
and I actually did appreciate my stamp collection. Actually, I tell you, the stamp collection was actually quite interesting because he managed to get like stamps from like really weird places. So it's like, so I guess I was, I think when, at face value, it doesn't sound like anything, but when you actually really drill down to it, it actually is quite sentimental. So
that's very nice.
Uh-huh. Anyway, back to Toy Story. Woody's placed on the shelf, and so that ended up happening. He goes to the yard sale, and he sees Wheezy the penguin being taken off to the yard sale, and so he goes off on a quest to rescue him. And obviously, he doesn't go very well because he ends up kind of being part of the toy toy sale at the end of that, and to the point where he falls into the sight of a very avid toy collector. And so I don't know. This is the entrance of our antagonist Al. So I don't know what you thought about him.
He's essentially pretty much like the same guy who's the evil bad guy in Jurassic Park. Oh wait, that's because they're the same person. It's Wayne Knight. So yeah, I mean, we did see little bits of Al's toy barn from the first movie, so now we actually get to see more of Al himself, and we get to see like the actual toy barn itself, and we get to learn more about the character, and we learned that he wants Woody really, really badly. He tries to haggle Andy's mom for that, and then she declines on it because it's an old family toy, and then he decides that he's going to do a distraction and pushes the skateboard and crashes it somewhere. And then he actually steals Woody, and the toys do their very best to go after him. But the car gets away, and Buzz is left a clue with the license plate and with the chicken feather.
Yeah, the one nitpick I have about that is that what was he doing at the yard sale to begin with? Because it doesn't look like he lives like locally in the area from the looks of it.
Well, I mean, I guess the reason why is because he's actually looking for the collection. We'll discuss more about this later. But remember, eBay was kind of like minuscule of what we have now. So I think that maybe he couldn't go online to see if there was any Woody the Cowboy dolls on eBay or something like that. So I'm sure he must have done this like multiple times and gone over to multiple neighborhoods to see if he can find a Woody the Cowboy doll. And since they're what the movie says, it's very rare, I'm sure that when he finally sees it, it's like, oh man, I'm going to take it no matter what.
Oh my! Imagine how many yard sales he must have actually gone around to actually find that Woody doll. It's like, just.
Well, yeah, I guess it makes a lot of sense for him because since he is the owner of a toy store, I'm sure that he would maybe have contacts with other toy stores or maybe other places that have toys, and maybe if they didn't have it, then maybe he'll go over to other places. So it just so happens to be a huge coincidence. He just went over to that one particular yard sale, and it had the doll that he was looking for.
Mm-hmm. So Woody is taken to Al's apartment, where he is greeted by a yodeling cowgirl named Jessie, and also Bullseye, and also gets to meet the Prospector. And I have to say, very strong supporting cast in the second act. Yeah, so.
Yes, I definitely do agree. They each have their own distinct personalities. Jessie is very high-strung. She's very enthusiastic. The Prospector is calm, and he's kind of like the leader of the group, making sure that everything is settled. Bullseye is your typical horse, and this is the part of the movie where Woody finds out that he's not just some regular cowboy doll. He is a collector's item in this huge show from the 1950s called Woody's Roundup. And he sees like all the toys and merchandise and the TV show that Woody came from. And he's shocked by it because he never knew about it.
Mm-hmm. It must have been very... it's kind of weird because you have Buzz, who knows pretty much his backstory right to the point where he actually kind of like believes in it religiously at the beginning, like in the first film. But you have Woody, who never really knew his origins, which is very, very strange to me.
It is very strange. I mean, we don't really know about who Woody's original owner was. I mean, it was said that it was a family toy, and maybe if it was given either if it once belonged to his mom or if it belonged to Andy's father, and if it would have continued on for multiple generations, maybe as time went on, maybe Woody slowly starts forgetting about his past. I mean, I'm sure that from he must have met up with a whole bunch of toys, and he must have gone through from house to house and seen the rest of the previous owners grown up. So it actually questions about, does he remember the previous toys he used to hang out with, or maybe it was just him and that previous owner when when it was passed out from generation to generation. That actually begs a question about that.
Huge question, doesn't it? Yeah, and how crazy would it be? What if Woody actually belonged to Andy's father and Jesse? Because there's saying that Jesse belonged to Andy's mom before.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because because Andy was wearing the cowboy hat, and the cowboy hat was from Jesse. So yeah, that actually is another very popular Pixar theory that we'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, that will be really coincidental that Woody would have belonged to Andy's father, and that's yet to be determined.
Yeah, it's like his father said, like, oh, I saw the Jessie doll and I had to have her. It's like okay, so they reveal that Woody is obviously the vintage Sheriff Woody of the forgotten children's television show Woody's Roundup, and I liked how campy the show was, and how they basically even went out of their way to remodel the whole couldn't you imagine they just basically just redid the characters in the show and kind of made them the same model, but instead they went out of their way to actually make it look like one of those 1950s, even older than that, those really early TV shows where they didn't really know what they were doing to basically make children's entertainment. It's
it definitely feels like a children's variety show from the 40s and 50s, in which they would have these really crude looking puppets, or they would have actors who would kind of portray as characters who would teach kids about manners or the alphabet or numbers, or they would just do a whole bunch of funny jokes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the likes of Sesame Street would pretty much come by and put the foundation on how a children's educational program should be. And then, later on we would have stuff like The Electric Company and Bill Nye and et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll tell you what, Sesame Street did change the game quite a lot.
Yeah, it pretty much did, because look back on local kids shows from the 40s and 50s, and you'll see just how crude and how low budget it was. And for some people, they find it to be really charming, because I do know some people who grew up with that kind of stuff, and every single state had their own version of a children's variety show, and that kind of stuff is a lost art unless it's being parodied in some way.
Yeah.
But I mean, everybody. If you're doing a children's educational show, you're pretty much taking the Sesame Street route.
Didn't every syndicated local television station have their own version of Bozo? If I remember, they'd have this, they'd have a character called Bozo the Clown, and it'd be different for every state. I think that might be the case. Yeah, I do know that every state had at least a different character or different interpretations of the character, and then we've had the likes of Howdy Doody and the Peanut Gallery, and that was also a big national popular show from the 50s, and a ton of that. And then eventually, Sesame Street would come along and change everything. And then Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Pee-wee's Playhouse basically was a parody of that, while at the same time put in its own surreal twist. And then, hold on. Oh,
there we go.
Okay.
So basically, it would just put in its own twist as to how to present it.
Oh, we just lost you again.
In Woody's Roundup, because it definitely feels like something that you would see in the 1950s. The wooden cardboard backgrounds, and you can see the strings and the puppets and the hokey acting. So, hold on just one second.
Yeah, don't worry
We're
about
having troubles here. People were apologizing.
Sounds like your microphone's trying to attack
So,
you.
basically, that's. I would say that, it's pretty faithful for what the movie is presenting with Woody's Roundup.
Yeah. So anyway, go back to Toy Story 2. The prospector warns Woody that he faces the same fate that Andy after Andy ages, and Woody agrees to go along with the Roundup gang to the museum. Buzz and his friends search for Al and Al's toy barn, and so I don't know. How did you feel about the whole, going towards Al's toy barn and going to the whole search?
It's pretty interesting. I mean, I'm glad that they were able to expand more of the characters because throughout the first Toy Story, we did get a little bit in the first act, but then throughout the second and third act, it was all about Woody and Buzz. So now that Woody is in the other, it was with the other characters, and we get to know a little bit more about Buzz and Mr. Potato Head and Slinky and Rex. So we actually get to focus on them, and that's how we learn a little bit more about their personalities. We learn about their determination to save Woody, and we actually get some really cool scenes with these characters when they're crossing the street and when they eventually go over to Al's toy barn. So I kind of actually like it. I mean, the first one was sort of like a buddy, cop movie, and then the second one is sort of like a rescue mission and finding out one's identity.
Actually, one thing we should notice at the beginning of this is that apparently aren't both Woody and Buzz voiced by the same voice actor, because they didn't get the person who voiced Buzz Lightyear back again. I don't believe for the.
You mean Tim Allen?
Yeah, I believe it was Tim Allen who voiced both characters.
No. Tim Allen did Buzz. Tom Hanks did Woody.
Yeah. Okay then. So. Well. Okay,
yeah,
so
the only time in which Tom Hanks would not be the voice of Woody is if it's in like video games or toys or anything like that. Then his brother would be the voice of Woody.
Okay. So yeah. So after Buzz orders his friends to split up and look, he gets separated from the group, and he. Sorry, I can hear myself echoing again in the.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay. Just
there we go. Okay, I'm just fixing it up.
Gotta fix all these. Let's wait for a while. Let's wait for it to change.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. So after the Buzz orders his friends to go look for Woody around the toy store, Buzz Lightyear meets up with another Buzz Lightyear, and obviously a fight ensues, and he ends up getting repackaged back up into a box due to a misunderstanding. Because this is actually kind of fun, because all the Buzz Lightyears are still like, they think they are still Buzz Lightyear, kind of the same way that Buzz Lightyear did think he was Buzz Lightyear, and how crazy was that sentence? But so they all still believe that they're in this whole make believe world of Buzz Lightyear, and Buzz obviously gets the Buzz that belongs to Andy obviously gets packaged away, and the other Buzz ends up getting brought back together with the rest of the group, and so basically he's buzzing it up pretty much the entire time that he's with them. So
yeah, I actually find this to be really hilarious that we have another Buzz Lightyear who was pretty much the same as as how Buzz was in the first movie. It just definitely shows you about how much Buzz has changed in the course of 2 movies. He has the helmet off. He's a lot more calmer. He knows that he's not on a mission to save the planet from the evil Emperor Zurg or what have you. So it's actually kind of lampooning itself.
Yeah, the one thing I will say about Buzz, with his persona in this movie is that because the helmet's down when he's obviously when he's in a recreational position, but then when he's like out for adventure, he puts his helmet down, and because he knows shit's gonna go down, so put the helmet down, so. The original Buzz breaks free and follows them back to Al's apartment. But while leaving the store, he accidentally frees Emperor Zurg, which I have to say brings a lot of hilarity to the side. And this is the one thing I do like about Toy Story 2. They do bring hilarious items into it, but they don't dilute the story. So it's they kind of tagged on to the adventure. So that's what's quite fun about the whole chase of the rescue mission in this.
Yeah, and also when the evil Emperor Zurg, you have them fighting, Buzz, and it just makes it look like something that you saw in the beginning of the movie, and you even have of course, Star Wars reference, because why not?
Because why not? Buzz finally and the gang finally catch up to Woody, and he reminds Woody that you're a child's plaything. You are a toy, and so that's one line's brought back from the other one, and so this brings up the conversation between the two. Woody's basically saying, "Well, how much longer? One more rip and he's done with me." And so Woody basically makes the decision to stay, and the group leaves off without him. And but then the TV comes back on, and it shows that Woody's saying, "You got a friend in me," and good foreshadowing for basically what Woody's going to do next. So because it's
Yeah. I forgot to mention this earlier, but the guy who's fixing Woody and making him look good as new, it's Jerry from the Pixar short of The Bug's Life from Jerry's Games.
Oh wow! I never actually didn't know that. That's well, learned something today. And so, because I mean, looking back to that scene, it was very creatively done because you could see that he's got like a whole it's kind of like a parlor, kind of like built into the box, and there was a lot of imagination brought into that element of it. You see him like pull this switch, and like all of a sudden this kind of like this clothes hanger comes up, and he hangs his hat up on it and stuff like that. And so it was, and he also has like this chair, and it was like a kind of like a barber's chair. And so it was
and I
very
think
well
that's
done.
similar to hand-me-downs. I think that toy fixing like that has become a lost art.
Mm-hmm.
Because nowadays, if something's broken, we buy a new one. We don't fix it. I mean, I do know that there are some toy hospitals, but they're few and far between.
Yeah, there is somebody on DeviantArt, and I can't remember the name of that person, but apparently, like, she takes like Disney dolls, and like because they kind of like they put them through a factory and stuff like that. She takes them and basically makes them even look like 1,000 times better than they would actually coming out of the factory.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't look real well. So yeah, she's out there somewhere. If someone can give me a name for her, I'll definitely put a link for her. But there's people out there who actually do take toys and actually do restore them, and so that practice is still out there. So
Yes, it is, but it's not as common as probably it once was.
No, it is a special kind of thing. I think special enough to basically be keeps featuring on DeviantArt. So definitely.
Yeah. And we're not talking about like commissions in which like if you pay a few dollars, they'll make you something new from scratch. But
Nope.
we're talking about like taking a toy from like 40 or 50 years old and having the toy hospital come by and fixing it as good as new.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, we're going back on to the Dracula
Woody.
story, and so Woody decides he changes his mind that he wouldn't miss Sandy growing up for the world, and so he basically tries to convince the group to go with him. But we get basically a very surprise antagonist in the Prospector who traps them in the room. So I think this actually did catch me by surprise. Actually, the fact
Me
that,
too.
yeah.
I didn't expect the Prospector to be the villain in this movie because he was in the box. It's like how can he get out of the box? It's like, oh, he could have if he just like popped open the lid, but no. I mean, throughout the movie we were like, oh, he's never been opened, but no, he has been. He for some reason he was able to get him to get out. I don't know if he was able to get like in the top or the bottom lid, but yeah, he was the one who turned on the TV to wake up Al so we can put him back. And
well, he got through the front, and so like he has like a front like window in his box, and so he got
right.
out
So maybe
that
he
way.
could have gotten out from there. Yeah. And the reason why he doesn't want Woody to go back with Buzz and his friends is because throughout his entire life as a toy, he has been in a dime cent store when the show was no longer popular, seen every other toy being sold, and now he finally has his redeeming moment where he'll be in the museum and he'll be loved by millions of children that he never got to have, and he's not going to let Woody and anybody else mess with that.
Mm-hmm. It's I just think I mean obviously I think Al still is probably like the main villain of the film because if it wasn't for him obviously this whole adventure, this whole debacle would never have happened in the film. But,
That is true. I guess he's more like the surprise secondary villain, but yeah, he is one of the main villains.
Mm-hmm. So we end up with this situation. So Al comes back in, he grabs everybody, and he's on his way next flight to Japan, and so that gets to the point where they have to commandeer a pizza delivery, the famous Pizza Planet delivery truck, to go chase after him in the taxi, and that ends up going to our bit in the airport. And I don't remember too much about the chase. I mean, obviously we got to see the aliens again. But I think that was one bit out of it, and you know.
Yeah, and also the aliens, they may be annoying here, but they're gonna be a huge help in the third movie. And I would have never seen that coming from a mile away when I first saw that. But we'll talk about that eventually.
Talk about that eventually. Who knows? Maybe we might talk about it in the next one. Who knows?
Who knows?
But,
yeah, who knows?
So we get to the bit of the airport. I'll tell you what, the airport scene, you know, in the third, I think is a very huge, very powerful scene. But I mean, the physics, I don't think, and I do get it, and it's like it is a children's animation film, but at the same time, the physics don't really make much sense. I mean, because when we get to the point where they get onto the the airplane and the jet, and then you see Bullseye being able to run as fast as the thing. It's like, it's that's a pretty crazy thing in itself, because the fact that the plane is going like I don't know what's at least more than 70 miles an hour. It's like it's pretty crazy for that to happen. But obviously there's more before that. There was obviously the scene with this whole maze of luggage handling in the airport in the airport itself, and so then there's this whole big standoff between Woody and the prospector, and then obviously with Woody and Buzz and the gang basically chasing after them, and that to me was a very it was a very I don't want to say powerful scene. I would say it's a very 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 it is a good scene, definitely.
Yeah, it was a very exhilarating scene.
Yeah, because you're going to when they were getting to the point where they were getting towards the box, and then they open it up, and all this is just basically just a bunch of camera equipment, and that was a good flash though. It's like that was a good chase in itself. So it goes from that point, and the prospector finally gets his comeuppance, and then he basically gets put into a little girl's bag, along with a Barbie doll, I guess.
Girl with cornrows, and she's crazy about redesigning her dolls. We have a Barbie doll who has cornrows, and she has a whole bunch of makeup, and she's like, "Hey, you'll like this owner. She's an artist." And it's like, "Oh wow, that's not good for the prospector." But then again, he kind of deserved it.
Mm-hmm. So so they get to the point with the airplane, and they obviously, because what happens is Jessie still is in the box, and so she ends up being boarded onto the plane before they're able to get her out, and so it's off to Woody, Buzz, and Bullseye to go save the day. They get onto the plane. Woody tries to get her off, but then his arm rips again, and during the rescue. And that actually did give some very dramatic. It gives a very dramatic moment, I think, because the fact that it's I don't want to say it was as dramatic as the first film, when it looked like Woody was going to get eaten up by the dog, but I wouldn't say, but it was still pretty dramatic in itself. So
yeah, and I also like the fact that he was able to convince Jessie to come with him to swing down from the plane, saying that it was going to be pretend this is the last episode of Woody's Roundup, and then we're gonna swing down and to safety, and right before the plane takes off, and she gets really excited, and that's when she decides that she's really going to be staying with Andy and the rest of the toys, and then we have this really hilarious scene that we didn't even actually see though, but the toys were able to get home on time because they stole one of the luggage carts, and they were able to drive it all the way back home, and you have a whole bunch of the neighbors just looking at it. It's like, how did this get here? And that would have been a pretty interesting scene if we would have seen that. But then again, I'm sure it would have been just a rehash of how they got to the airport. And yeah, but still, it's actually pretty funny that, they were able to drive a luggage cart. And we have Andy coming back from cowboy camp, and he's really excited that that there's new toys with Jessie and Bullseye, and then Woody has his arm fixed by Andy, which never looks that way again. I just want to let you know that he never gets that muscular, beefy looking arm in Toy Story 3 or any of the Toy Story shorts. So it's actually pretty funny with that retcon.
Yeah, because I'd imagine probably the hair just came out of his arm. after that. So who knows?
Sure,
But
we'll go with that.
we'll go with that. So they all get together in Andy's room, and obviously they found an extra squeaker for Wheezy the penguin, and he sings a variation of "You Got a Friend in Me," and it's funny enough though. It's like it's a nice rendition, but I still prefer Randy Newman's.
Sure,
Funny,
yeah, we all do. And then
and Al basically is he's in his chicken suit on the commercial, and he's obviously crying his eyes out because obviously he's lost all his and Hamm basically says well, guess crime doesn't pay, and so that was a good payoff watching that after that. So
yeah, that was a pretty nice payoff. And then the movie ends with Woody and Buzz coming together, and Buzz is asking if he's afraid of Andy getting older and losing interest in him, and he says, "Nah, it'll be fun while it lasts." And then the line concludes with, "As long as I have my best friend here with me for infinity and beyond."
Mm-hmm. And there was a bit of foreshadowing, I think, to Toy Story 3 in this film, because Slinky Beats' words foreshadow various things that happen in the next film. His words are, "Children destroy toys, you'll be ruined, forgotten, spending eternity rotting in some landfill." Happens and almost comes true as the young children at Sunny Daycare do destroy toys and do throw them into a landfill. So Toy Story 3, there's some foreshadowing there in Toy Story 2, so that's...
yeah, we just need to wait another 11 years for that.
Mm-hmm. Anyway,
actually, right before we give our ranking, this is the first time that we actually are discussing about this in PixMix because they've only done it 3 times. The bloopers.
Oh yeah, this is actually one of the very few films that actually has the bloopers in it. So
yeah,
I gotta be honest. Yeah, after I saw the bloopers from Toy Story 2 and Monsters Inc. and I think they did the Bugs Life they did them for as well. And I think they did like some kind of crazy thing for The Incredibles. But I really do miss the bloopers actually that they did for that. I wish they kind of did some more.
Yeah, I wish that they would do the same as well, because I mean, I don't know if the bloopers were like intentional or they were actually flub lines that they animated, or like they I mean, I'm sure like with some of them, sure, like when Woody would sit down and the tape actually he like fell through the hole. But yeah, I'm actually curious about how much of those are actually bloopers or how much of those were actually fabricated.
Maybe they were improv.
Yeah, a lot of it is improv. Have you seen the Lion King animated bloopers?
Yeah, I have actually. Were they actually?
That's actually really funny.
Were they actually genuine, retakes and stuff?
Yeah, I think from what I've read, there were like legit bloopers from the actors, and somebody took the time to animate it.
Oh, well,
which you rarely see that anymore. I wish that would be more like common, because I do know that they have like blooper takes in which like they would play off a scene and then be the same scene that they would be acting in, and then it would be just the raw audio with them flubbing a line or swearing or something like that, but not like the actual audio and then drawing it from scratch.
Oh, how fun would the Hey Arnold the Jungle Movie bloopers have been?
Oh,
how fun would they have been? Oh, that would have been like, yeah. Arnold and Helga like going in for the kiss, and then he just kind of misses Helga on the lips because he's that tense about
it. Like little lower, football head.
and then it's like when they're like doing like the whole like poison darts thing, and the poison darts fails come out of the wall, and they were kind of jumping up and down to get them to release it. Oh, that would.
Yeah, or maybe like more improvisational what you call it, like characters that La Sombra would be doing with the mustaches, like Frida Kahlo, I'm Eduardo, I'm La Sombra, I'm Eduardo. Maybe you can like play like other characters like I'm Groucho Marx or something like that.
Yeah, that would have been fun. Yeah, so we missed the bloopers. I hope they do some more in other Pixar films.
Yeah, I do wish that, but they only done it 3 times, and from the looks of it, I don't think they're going to do it again, which is a shame.
Yeah, it is. So, box office, it did $245 million in the box office, and so that was pretty good. And the reviews, right now, according to this, Rotten Tomatoes, it's still 100%. So
Yeah,
not one critic.
I mean, very few people do not like this movie, and it's kind of a reason why. I mean, this is a prime example on how to do a sequel right.
Yeah, I'd love to see a bad review of Toy Story 2 and just see what on earth they would complain about it. Like, it's like
That would be funny.
have you
Probably like some
have you ever
nitpicks or something.
seen the infamous review of Super Mario 64 where the big complaint from the guy was that it wasn't as good as Toy Story?
Yeah, yes, I did.
Oh god, that's the only
And
type
also,
of
I saw this one in Guru Larry's fact hunt about some guy who was complaining about one of the Aliens games for the PlayStation having like inexcusable controls. It's like you have to move with the left analog stick, and you have to move the camera with the right analog stick, and you have to push to shoot with the R1 button. It's like, this was so bad, you might as well use a mouse.
Oh my god, like
It's so bad.
yeah. You know when people are so ingrained in their own ways. Like, I mean, to be fair, I mean, I use a control. I've always been brought up on a controller, for games. Like, so ever since the Super Nintendo days, I was always brought up on a controller. So, for me playing on, and also, in regards to playing on a PC, like, I played with a PC. I didn't even have a mouse. I only had the keyboard. So, like,
Yeah.
I was playing Lemmings with that. So it's like, and like Golden Axe and stuff. So, so, it's like, I can understand why some people have been brought in their own ways, but when you're a professional, like, reviewing something, it's like, come on. It's like, like, you have to get to grips with this kind of stuff. You can't, you're just going to end up humiliating yourself, pretty much.
Yeah. All right, so let's finally give our ranks of how we feel about this movie.
I'll say 9. Because I think I don't see, I think it is up there with some of the films. I mean, I would say though, in regards to like, why, Al looking around for like, millions of yard sales, looking for this Woody doll, I think was kind of, I don't know. And also on there was something else I was thinking about which I didn't particularly like about Toy Story 2, but I mean it was. I'm trying to think what it was actually. No, I think I think I would say probably 9.5 at this point. It's like
I'll say it's really tough because as a sequel, it's definitely better than the first, or it's just as good. I mean, it's not like it was a massive disappointment or a rehash.
No.
So, there's very little to complain about it other than just minor nitpicks. So I'm gonna give it. It's really tough because I gave it a 10 for the original. So as for the second one, let's see. I'll probably just give it another 10 because I think that it's just as good, if not better, than the first movie. It does a lot of things right. It adds new characters. It adds new locations. The stakes are higher. It gives a lot of deep thoughts about what would happen if your original owner grows up and you have to be, put on the shelf. And, we also have that amazing moment with Jessie when she's talking about Emily and that really beautiful song.
Oh, yeah.
When Somebody Loves Me. It's amazing. So, yeah, I think it's just as good as the original.
You know what? There's actually a demo recording of that song of Randy Newman singing it, and even he makes it sound emotional. It's like, it's like, tell you what, actually changing my mind. I'll give it a 10. As well.
Sure.
So,
okay, that's fine.
I think,
So, we both give it a 10. If you have not seen this movie, then what rock are you living under? Go watch it.
Yeah, seriously. I'm hoping that you actually have watched it listening to this because I think we've probably given most of it away. So, or giving it all away, so I think. So, so that was another episode of PixMix. Sorry the schedule's gone a bit screwed up a little bit. I think right now we're on this episode, which should have really gone out, should have come to you over the weekend, but unfortunately it's just been pushed back. So we're going to probably have another one probably by next week, I probably imagine. So probably between Tuesday and Wednesday next week, I probably imagine. So we'll keep you posted and let you know when we're going to do the next one. But anyway, from myself, Aaron,
and Patricia,
take care and bye-bye for now.
See you later.